Hello everyone, welcome to our ongoing mains answer writing series. So today we have one question from Indian economy. The question is about fiscal deficit. Okay. So the question is, what is fiscal spending? Suggest suitable measures to contain fiscal deficit, which has become a serious cause of concern for the government. Now it was asked in one state exams, that too it was a 10 marker, 150 words. Now the question looks easy, but the thing is how to structure the answer with proper facts and how to write in a very structured way. Okay, now the question is about fiscal spending. So we need to write what is fiscal spending. Now there we need to write one thing, because the question is you have to suggest measures to contain deficit, which has become a serious matter of concern. So it means we need to give a data, what is the recent fiscal deficit, now why it is a matter of concern, and then we have to give the measures how to control that particular deficit. Now coming to the answer, first of all, we need to write what is fiscal spending. So fiscal spending means government spending. It's very easy. We go through our Indian economic course where we know the government, the money spent by the government for infrastructure or for any government services, or it may be welfare or anything, that is overall called fiscal spending. So it is the government spending or the expenditure or public expenditure which refers to the money that a government spends on various services and projects. Example, we need to give some examples what kind of spending government does. For example, spending on infrastructure, it may be roads, bridge or schools. Public services, it can be any money spent on health or healthcare, education, defense, any kind of social welfare programs, and also the interest payment on national debt. The government takes money from different banks, it may be World Bank or Asian Development Bank. So the government has to also pay the interest. Now it also comes under the expenditure. Now all this spending, this is called fiscal spending. Now we have as per the question, we wrote what is fiscal spending. Now the question is asking what are the measures to contain this deficit. Now before going to the measure, we need to give here some data. Okay. So first of all, before going to that, we need to write, according to economic survey, the fiscal deficit for 2023-24 stood at 5.6% of GDP. Now 5.6% of GDP. Now the target was 5.8. Yes, the target was 5.8, but it is 5.6. It is lower than the target. But still then, generally what happens is, generally the safe limit of fiscal deficit is maximum 3%. Now it is generally considered as maximum 3% is good for fiscal deficit. Okay. But when the fiscal deficit crosses the 3% mark, especially for a developing country like India, then there is a worrying sign or a matter of concern. So the question is, because it is a matter of concern, that is the reason why the question has been made. So before going to the measures to contain fiscal deficit, we need to give a perspective. Okay, this is the fiscal deficit, it is lower than the target of 5.8, but yes, it is still not under the 3% mark. And for a developing country like India, this is a worrying sign also. Okay, now we can, after giving this perspective, we can come to the point what is asked in the question, how to contain the fiscal deficit. Now the measures to contain fiscal deficit. Now we'll do it point wise. Now we have segregated the points. First of all, by reducing the public expenditure. Now the thing is, public expenditure, we can't reduce the public expenditure like as a whole, because expenditure is needed. But what to reduce? First of all, subsidies. Now here we cannot try to eliminate subsidies, because subsidies are required. It is kind of a welfare. Subsidies are required. But the thing is, subsidies should not go for wastage. So that means we have to rationalize the subsidies. We have to take care of the subsidies which should not go for wastage. So rationalizing subsidies, prioritizing spending. Yes, spending is required, but we need to make sure, the government has to make sure or focus on essential services and cutting back on non-essential expenditure. Those expenditures which are not essential, it's better to cut it down so that our fiscal deficit can come a little bit lower. Increasing revenue. And when you talk about revenue, so the first thing which comes is tax, increasing the tax reform, bringing some tax reforms. So here, for tax reforms, we have to broaden the tax base, and the more important thing is the compliance, because tax evasion is done. So the government has to take care of people who are evading taxes. Okay, so tax compliance the government has to take care. Introducing new taxes, for example, environmental taxes, because now climate change and this environment, like taking care of the environment is a big issue now. So the government can bring environmental taxes and also wealth taxes. Enhanced collection efforts. For example, for high income earners, those people who are earning a lot of money. So from them, especially, we need to have enhanced collection efforts or collection methods, and also the corporations. Fine. So increasing revenue, reducing public expenditure. Then coming to economic growth. Now in economic growth, stimulating economic activity. You need to bring out some policies that will boost the economic growth and increase government revenue through higher tax receipt. And in the same economic growth, we can promote investments. Now if you talk about investment, attracting both domestic and FDIs. Now in public sector reforms, first of all, privatization. Now see, privatization is also a debatable topic, but here privatization should be done for loss-making public sector units. So those public sector units which are into loss, so selling those loss-making public sector units to private entities. Public-private partnership, PPP. It means we need to collaborate with private sector to fund and manage public projects. Yes, government is doing, but again, we need to do it in a very enhanced way. And the most important thing, asset monetization. For example, we have real estate investment trust, which we read in our current affairs, that can be used to monetize assets. In these points, we need to give some examples also, which will enhance the answer. So REITs can be used more efficiently by the government in asset monetization. Now coming to debt management, the most important part, debt management. Now for debt management, some years back in 2017-18, there was this agency. It was the government talked about this Public Debt Management Agency for managing the public debt portfolio of central. It's still not into existence now, because we have an interim thing, that is debt management cell. But we need to have a proper agency which will monitor and control the debt of center and the states. Issuing long-term bonds. So long-term bonds can reduce the annual debt servicing cost. So that can also help. Now overall thing is efficiency improvement. Now in efficiency improvements, we can write about technology, using technology. So adopting technology can reduce the cost in government operations, improving governance like transparency, reducing corruption, etc., etc. All those things can overall help in managing our fiscal deficit. Now coming to the conclusion, we can write the government can work towards reducing fiscal deficit and achieving greater fiscal sustainability by implementing a combination of these measures. The measures which are mentioned here, like the government can take a combination of these measures and can apply it for achieving higher fiscal sustainability. And more importantly, using the escape clause under FRBM Act judiciously and in exceptional cases. Now what is escape clause? Now escape clause is in FRBM Act. Okay. Now in FRBM Act, escape clause means you can deviate, the government can deviate from the target. There is a target which the government gives to itself. Now it can deviate from the target if there is some like economic distress or there is a national security problem. In some cases they can deviate. But the thing is, the government has to see it's not good to always deviate from the target. Okay, it should be only used judiciously and in exceptional cases. Now this was the question from GS 3 Economy. We'll come up with more questions in our next video. Thank you.